What's going on, guys? This is Jake at That Fit Friend, and today I'll be reviewing the Reebok Nano Gym. So 3 things to like with this shoe. Number 1, if you are a generalist with your workout needs and you go to the gym, you do some strength work, you do some versatile work and maybe some HIIT workouts and a short run here and there, this can be a good budget-friendly option to look into. This model has a $100 price point. Now, it's different from the NanoFlex TR2, which was also like the more budget nano model that was out in the last 2 years, because this shoe is a bit more lightweight with its construction, it's a bit more cushioned, and it's not as dense. So it's gonna give you a little bit more versatility and responsiveness regarding a wider range of workouts. The second thing to like with the Reebok Nano Gym is if you're somebody that wants a shoe that you can take in and out of the gym that's also comfortable for walking, that's where the shoe can excel. With this EVA foam midsole, it is pretty plush and cushy, and there's a good amount of maneuverability up here in the forefoot and midfoot. So it can feel pretty comfortable on your feet all day if you do like a softer ride with your training shoe and you want that singular shoe to just take out and about and beat up, but then also wear to the gym. The third thing to like with this shoe is if you have a narrower foot and you like a bit more arch in your training shoes. That's where this model can excel. This model does have a pretty tapered toe box, so it's not going to give you the same width as the older nano models. And for my friends who like a little bit of arch support, that's where this shoe I think is going to excel. For that foot anatomy, this model is going to feel like a glove on your foot. And now that said, for wide feet, this shoe is not going to be your best bet. I'll talk about that in my cons, but all that to say, this model can be a pretty good generalist for the money. But now let's talk about a couple of cons that I found with the Reebok Nano Gym. So 3 cons that I have with the Nano Gym is number 1, I find that this shoe pitches me forward a lot. So this model's heel to toe drop is 8 millimeters, but I'm not exactly sure why, but this model feels a lot more aggressive than that. Now, obviously, if you don't mind an 8 millimeter drop, you'll likely be fine with this. But based on my observations, like when doing kettlebell swings and anything where I was a bit more forward with my momentum and movement, this model was really hard to, I think, just find stability at times. And I know others in my comments have said something similar with the Nano Gym, so I'm not alone there. So if you are somebody who likes a flatter feeling shoe, or if you are worried about being pitched forward with your training shoes, this would be something to consider with this model. So if you're doing a lot of forefoot dominant work, for example, where you're often leaning forward, or a lot of kettlebell flows where you're doing swings and whatnot, and you really need to anchor into the hips, that's where the shoe might have some discrepancies with their performance. The second con that I have with this model is it's pretty dang narrow up here through the toe box. Now, it's been interesting to see Reebok go a little bit more narrow with their latest training shoes. I'm curious as to why that is. Maybe it just captures a wider demographic for the market, but all that to say, this is not going to give you the width that the older Nanos would. And I have a 2E width, and I find this to be a smidge narrow. So I say if you're 2E or wider with your foot, or if you have a flat foot, because this model does have a bit of arch, you're going to want to steer clear of this shoe. The third con that I have with this shoe is we have some exposed foam on the outsole. Now, in the gym, I never really had glaring grip issues with this shoe. However, if you're training outdoors on concrete, this would be something to keep an eye on. Because we do have this exposed foam here, I could see friction being an issue with this model long term. So all that to say, while it's not going to probably be an issue in gym with durability, and it does have good grip, if you're training outdoors, or if you're wanting to run outdoors on concrete, or if you're training on hot concrete at that, like I'm in Austin, Texas, I would not want to use this shoe outside right now. That would definitely be a durability concern that I have with this shoe. But now let's talk about the performance of the Nano Gym. To break down the performance of the Nano Gym, I'll discuss how this shoe does for lifting, versatile training, short runs, and daily wear. Now, in the context of lifting, I have some gripes with this shoe. This has not been my favorite Nano model to date for strength work. And so if you're gonna buy this shoe and use them for just general workouts, or you just do some free weights and some machines here and there, but you're not going crazy heavy, this shoe will work. However, with this EVA foam midsole and its higher stack height and how you just kind of feel pitched forward, I did not love this shoe for lifting. For deadlifts, or for anything where I wanted to have a bit more stability, for example, like with barbell reverse lunges, this model just kind of rocked back and forth. You feel kind of forward with your shin angle. And overall, I found it pretty tough to stabilize in this shoe. Plus, you do have a bit of toe spring here too, which will also feed into that more pitched forward feeling in this model. Again, though, if you're just going in and doing some lunges and whatnot, some machine work like leg press, hack squat, etc., and you're just tacking on some strength work with your classes, this shoe should be plenty fine. So definitely don't take that as you can't lift in this shoe. It's just not the best for strength work. I think if you want a Nano for strength training, you'll want to go with the Nano X2, X3, X4. If you can find them, I would say look around for sales because they are often marked down right now. So definitely check those shoes out. They're going to give you a denser midsole with more stability for lifting context. When it comes to versatile training, this shoe has done a pretty good job, and that's where I think this model is really going to excel. So if you do invest in the Nano Gym, as Reebok says, it's good for gym workouts. That's so broad. I don't really know what that means. If we're talking versatile versatile workouts, I get it, because this model is going to give you a bit more of like an athletic feel on the feet compared to models like the Nano X3 and X4, which do have a denser ride. So this model is going to give you a little bit more flexibility up here in the forefoot, and for things like jump rope and box jumps and burpees, this model has felt pretty good with the pliability of the forefoot and the bounce. So I do think you'll like this model if you want the shoe for HIIT workouts, classes, or just cross-training context where you're not going crazy heavy with your lifting, but you'll be doing a lot of plyos and multi-directional work. That's where I think the shoe can excel. Plus, with this mesh and knit upper, you do get a good amount of security in the shoe, and it has a higher boot, so it does give you a bit more ankle support as well for multi-directional movements. When it comes to short runs, this model does an okay job. This is going to be one of those shoes that you can rock for 1 to 2 to 3 miles pre or post workout if they're a lot more casual, and they should do a good job. I would say stick to your treadmill or curved treadmills if you can. If you're running in this model, you can definitely run with them outdoors. However, again, with this exposed foam, be very conscious of wearing them on hotter concrete surfaces because that can cause a little bit of breakdown here. And with these breaks in the sole construction, this can start to pick up rocks. I actually noticed this the other day when I was training at a buddy's house outdoors. It was starting to pick up pine needles and little bits of mulch, which I wasn't really the biggest fan of, but it's similar to like the Nike Free Metcon 6 and the On Cloud X4, which I had just also recently reviewed, and I was kind of used to it. But that to say, that's where I would put this Nano Gym in that same category. It's very similar to those models, and so for short runs, 1 to 2 to 3 miles should be an okay option in these, and they will work, I think, for class workouts where you're doing short interval runs. When it comes to daily wear, the shoe can work and it's comfortable. What I will say though is it does run a little bit narrow, and with its arch, I don't think it's going to be the most comfortable for everyone. So for wide and flat feet, I would say probably just pass on this shoe, or just keep them on for your workouts if you just want to put them on really fast and then for short durations afterwards, because I think for all day wear, you might actually find them uncomfortable just due to those sizing discrepancies in this model. But all that to say, if you do align with this shoe's last construction, I do think they can be comfortable for all day wear. It just comes down to if your foot's anatomy is going to align with this model, but it's definitely a more plush and comfortable ride for walking. Now, all that to say, when it comes to the breakdown of this shoe for lifting, I would give this shoe a 6.5 out of 10, knowing that it's not going to be the best for heavy strength training. For versatile training, I'd give this shoe a strong like 7.5, maybe 8 out of 10 if we're going to be a little bit generous. For short runs, I'd give this model a 7.5 out of 10. It's pretty standard for what you can expect with a shoe with a thicker foam midsole like this in the context of training shoes. And then for daily wear, I'd give this shoe like a 6.5, 7 out of 10. And that's just because I exceed the width of this toe box, but I know they can be pretty comfortable for certain foot anatomies. When it comes to the price of the Reebok Nano Gym, you could expect to pay $100. I'd kind of put this shoe in the same product category as the NanoFlex TR2 blended with the HIIT TR21 and 22. It's kind of like a meshing of those two models. It's a bit more stable than the HIIT models, but it's a bit more versatile than the NanoFlex TR2. But for $100 for this shoe, I think if you're a generalist, the price does make sense. All right, so now to answer the question, who is the Reebok Nano Gym best for? So I think if you are a beginner to the gym or you're an intermediate and you just want that singular shoe for doing a little bit of everything and you don't want to break the bank, that's where the shoe can make a lot of sense. I also think the shoe works really well for folks with narrow to medium foot widths and they like a little bit of arch support. So if you fall into those categories, I think you'll enjoy the fit of this shoe. And then number 3, if you're somebody that wants a shoe that you can just wear out and about on a daily wear basis and beat up and not feel guilty because of the price, but then also wear to the gym and have it be pretty comfortable for a little bit of everything as well, that's where the Nano Gym can excel. I put this shoe into kind of like that just daily driver, I'm going to beat it up and I don't want to feel guilty category, and I don't want to drop $150 for a shoe to do that. I'm going to keep that shoe for my more specific workouts. Now, who shouldn't buy this shoe? Number 1, if you're training all the time outdoors on concrete, I would pass on this shoe. Number 2, if you have wider feet or flatter feet, I'm telling you now, avoid this shoe. I don't think you're going to find them comfortable, especially if you don't like how the Nano X3 and Nano X4 fit. And then number 3, if you want a shoe that's going to give you a bit more of a minimalist feel or a flatter feeling when you're training and you do a lot of deadlifts and heavier strength work, you're going to want to pass on this model as well, because I don't think the midsole and the drop are going to be it for your needs. When it comes to the sizing and fit of the Reebok Nano Gym, I think most lifters and athletes should be safe going true to size in this shoe. And now when it comes to width, this model is what I would describe as having a more narrow to medium to maybe slightly wider if we're going to be generous with its width. I have an E to double E width foot in a normal arch, and I found the toe box of this shoe to feel a little bit snug at times, and that was with thicker socks. And so if I wear this shoe, I have to go thin thin socks. Otherwise, I just feel a little bit too cramped in the toe box. And then also, I do pick up on the arch in this. So for flat feet, once again, you'll notice this as well. Now, when it comes to relative sizing, if you've worn Reebok before, go with the same size as you've worn in the other models in this shoe. And then if you've worn Nike or Adidas, I would say go true to size in this model as well. I don't think you're gonna need to size up or down in the Nano Gym. All right, so now let's cover the weight drop and insole in the Nano Gym. For my size 10 model here, we have a weight of 13.25 ounces. The heel to toe drop in this shoe sits at 8 millimeters, and this model does have a thin foam removable insole. All right, now let's break down the construction of the Nano Gym. Up here on the toe box, you have an extended outsole layer that wraps up. You also have a light internal toe guard in the interior of the shoe. It helps give this toe box a bit more structure. Looking at the upper construction, you have a lightweight mesh that runs from the forefoot into the midfoot, and then you have some synthetic overlays here around the midfoot on the lateral and medial side. That helps give this midfoot a bit more structure. And then back here in the boot, you do have an internal boot cup here to help give this boot some structure as well. You also have some padding around the boot. This padded mesh does give you a slightly more comfortable fit. Now the boot does come up pretty high on this model. However, with this lip, I don't know if it's going to necessarily bother everybody's ankle. However, if you are prone to having rubbing in your shoes, that would definitely be something to consider and keep an eye on with this model, because again, with higher boots like this, they can be problematic for certain ankle anatomies and Achilles situation. And then looking back here on the end of the boot, you have an external heel tab to help pull this shoe on. And then looking at the laces and tongue, you have 6 core eyelets that go up. You have a padded mesh tongue. This tongue does have an additional loop for security, and there is a low gusset in this tongue, so I don't think you're gonna have tongue movement in this model. Looking at the midsole, you have an EVA foam that runs throughout. Again, it is a bit more plush, so it's gonna give you a slightly more responsive feel, not the most stability. And then looking at the outsole, you have rubber up here on the forefoot and heel, and then on the outside of this shoe, but this foam is still pretty exposed, and that's why I don't necessarily love this shoe for outdoor workouts, especially on concrete for my versatile folks. And then once again, you do have a removable insole in this shoe, but if you have additional construction questions on this model, drop a comment down below. Now let's answer the most important question. Would I get the shoe again? So I think if I was on the market for a singular shoe and I was a bit more beginner, intermediate for the gym, and I only wanted to spend $100, yes, I think this shoe makes a lot of sense. Now, all that to say, if you are somebody who is into lifting, or if you're somebody who is into CrossFit, I would say go with other options out there. There are so many stronger shoes than the Nano Gym. And so even if you are trying to save a little bit of money, you can look into older iterations of the Tri-Base Rain, of the Metcon. So I think you can find options around $100 if you're looking for stability and durability for CrossFit. But wrapping up here, if you have additional questions on the Nano Gym, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, y'all, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.